It is precisely there that the representatives of global anti-cultism establish their deep state and develop their strategy. It is from there that their commands are issued to other countries for all branches, including anti-cult organizations. It's important to understand that anti-cult organizations worldwide are merely one of the tools through which global anti-cultism achieves its goals. Organizations like Ratzers, Fekris, and anti-cultists in America are just mouthpieces of anti-cultism, pawns on the chessboard that it manipulates. Anti-cultism will not protect them if there is a threat of it being exposed. In order to deflect the blow from itself, it will easily sacrifice them all and discard them like a lizard dropping its tail to escape. In Russia, the country that has become the stronghold of anti-cultism, anti-cult organizations have already triumphed and are destabilizing it by manipulating the minds of millions of citizens. You may wonder, if anti-cultism originates from Russia, why are they destabilizing their own country? The thing is that they don't consider it their country. They hate both Russia and the Russian people just as much as they hate America and the American people. I think you're already convinced of how cruel their methods of manipulating people are, and now I will give you another example. This enemy has set a goal to revive Nazism and to destroy democracy by any means possible. In order to achieve this, they have established a state within a state in Russia that has already gained immense power. Global anti-cultism is cynical and ruthless, and for the revival of Nazism, it has chosen the very country which suffered the greatest human losses defending itself and the whole world from the Third Reich. The most frightening aspect of this situation is that Russian citizens, people who lost someone in every family while defending their homeland from Nazism during World War II, people for whom the very word Nazism is the most terrifying, people who sincerely believe that such a thing will never happen again in their country because they won't allow it, without even realizing it, are now helping to build the Fourth Reich with their own hands. Russia is just a convenient testing ground for the anti-cultists, where they refine all their methods before using them in other countries to take control of the entire world. Anti-cultism and anti-cult organizations hold immense power in this state. They have managed to alter the constitution to suit their needs, took over government authorities, and made Orthodox Christianity their titular religion. Anti-cultism is behind Putin, manipulating him for a very long time. From time to time, representatives of anti-cultism even publicly remind Putin, who is really in charge of the country, and warn him about the consequences if he doesn't follow their directives. One of the numerous examples is Alexander Novopashin's commentary on Putin's election program back in 2012.
Excerpt from Alexander Novopashin's commentary on President Putin's election program.
Whatever the case, we still have to vote based on what politicians declare in their programs. Not all of them speak about morality and spirituality today. Therefore, it is heartening to hear this from Putin, especially after he wished in his New Year's address that the dragon would bring something to us.
By the way, the coming year is the year of the dragon, according to the Eastern calendar. I was actually born in the year of the dragon. As a rule, these have always been fortunate times for us. I hope this time too, the dragon will bring luck, well-being, and prosperity to every Russian family, to all our citizens.
That really shocked me back then. If a man wears a cross, how can he appeal to some fictional beast instead of the Creator and wish its help for his people? Moreover, what do Chinese superstitions have to do with our history, traditions, and culture? Why is this being imposed on us? So, God willing, Putin's words about traditional spirituality will be followed by actions, and there will no longer be concessions to foreign phenomena like rats, dragons, pigs, and other superstitions. I want the campaign words to be sincere, and I want the politician to be consistent in implementing them. Otherwise, he will have no respect either in contemporary society among his fellow citizens or from future generations. Memory will remain, and I think its quality is something that no sane person should be indifferent to. Our church sings, "Eternal memory." I hope this matters to Putin as well.
An ordinary person who knows nothing about anti-cultism might not see anything special in these words. However, you now possess the knowledge and facts about the goals and methods of anti-cultism. Therefore, I am sure you understand that this was a direct order to Putin, as well as a declaration of the consequences he would face for disobedience. If we translate Novopashin's words into plain language, his message to Putin would sound roughly like this. If you don't do what we want, we will ensure that the people neither respect you nor regard you as their president, and we will erase memories about you forever. Do you think Putin heard this? Of course. He did, because Novopashin is merely a mouthpiece delivering a warning from the force that is standing behind him, and Putin understood this perfectly well. He heard it and drew his conclusions.
Today, Vladimir Putin stated that Russia needs to improve legislation on controlling the activities of totalitarian sects. This issue was raised by representatives from the Samara region, along with Governor Nikolai Merkushkin, who came to the president to discuss the region's problems.
They proposed creating a database of such organizations and making the list accessible to all regions.
As for totalitarian activity trends, they certainly represent an unequivocal threat to our state, our society, and our people. That's not just a hunt for the souls, it's a hunt for property. Ultimately, it all boils down to a hunt for the property and souls of these people. I agree with you that government authorities, both at the federal and regional levels, must consider refining the legal framework. Working in this direction and implementing these regulatory documents in practice.
Let me remind you that the term totalitarian sect and the definition of what may be considered a totalitarian sect, that is, a destructive cult, was actually introduced by anti-cultists.
It so happened that in Russia, I was actually the first to deal with this new phenomenon, and accordingly, I was the first to use the term totalitarian sect. Although it happened totally by chance that I was the first to use it, it was obviously on everyone's tongue, or on the tongues of many people at least, because everyone else immediately started using it.
This term isn't defined legally, and its use violates the presumption of innocence. Now think carefully. What? The use of the term totalitarian sect or destructive cult at the official level by the president of a country signifies. With his statement, Putin essentially violated the presumption of innocence, legitimized persecution, and supported stigmatization of millions of innocent people. Moreover, this statement became a signal to law enforcement agencies and security services that they can repress any citizens whom anti-cultists identify as members of a totalitarian sect or destructive cult. All of this happened merely because Putin began to echo the anti-cultist rhetoric after hearing Novopashin's warning. Thus, a single statement by Putin significantly expanded the already immense power of the representatives of anti-cultism in Russia, increased their ability to influence the minds of citizens, and ultimately exacerbated people's sufferings. Some people wonder why Russian citizens do not realize they are being manipulated. However, imagine how difficult it is to live under constant threat and psychological pressure while your consciousness is bombarded with contradictory narratives. People who had tasted a little bit of freedom after the USSR totalitarianism now live under relentless informational and psychological terrorist attacks, in permanent fear for their own lives and the lives of their loved ones. They live in a country where expressing an opinion that seems wrong to that terrorist entity can result in criminal charges against any citizen and their family. In this territory, laws and human rights have long been disregarded. The citizens of Russia are the most affected by this secret entity. just as anti-cultism has its own state within the state, in the same way they have their own grouping within Orthodox Christianity, which by its actions poisons the very essence of this religion. Having infiltrated Orthodoxy, they use it to fight other religions and associations of people under the directive of anti-cultism. Thus, they have made Orthodoxy their titular religion and got even more power into their hands, which they use to influence the consciousness of Russian citizens and subordinate them to their will. Ratsers has become the main tool for that secret entity to conduct its criminal activities and manipulate public consciousness. It is easier to influence believers since the topic of God is sacred and valuable to them. Sermons and lectures by church representatives contain destructive imprints that are beneficial to that entity and bypass people's critical thinking, penetrating directly into subconsciousness.
Death in the war is better than any other deaths. It's the best of all deaths. I'll tell you that people usually die like pigs, choking on vomit. They eat, drink, get drunk, fall under tables, throw up, and choke on their own vomit.
Their manipulation of people's minds can easily be traced if you carefully listen to their narratives. A recent extremist article by a Russian archpriest serves as a striking example of such an informational act of terrorism.
Excerpt from a lecture by Ratsir's representative Protoyerius Vyacheslav Pushkaryov, titled "Peacemaking and Theological Dialogue with Non-Orthodoxes No Longer Makes Sense."
We, Orthodox Christians, always stand for peace among nations and opinions. We are the true peacemakers, as is the Russian civilization we have created. However, we are experienced peacemakers with 1,000-year experience. This experience has taught us that not all means are acceptable and not all people are suitable for achieving our goals. This means that we should not rely on government officials or the people who live outside our church. We pin our hopes only on the body of Christ and the Holy Spirit, the Comforter who dwells in it until the end of time. We are the only true statesmen, not in the state, but within ourselves, from the fullness of our heart. We are free from nationalism or partisanship, but we propagate the chosenness of the Russian Orthodox spirit, which alone is state-forming, and we defend it to death. Therefore, in order to maintain peace, we do not need preliminary negotiations with pseudo-clergymen and heretics about the smell of their and our socks, and we do not need their instructions on how to live, because we've had all the answers for a long time, and they are already in practical application. It wasn't us who split from them, but they split from us. They are not the church, but only we are, and the gates of hell have not prevailed against us, and according to Christ's prophecy, will not prevail. Activities in the so-called interfaith dialogue represent an attempt to appease the state, deceive the true Orthodox believers, and create an illusion of peacemaking for non-believers, to prolong the agony of their stay in the world. That's a business which has nothing to do with the divine act of peacemaking. Those among us who don't understand this and indulge pseudo-clergymen only inflate their self-esteem and prolong their convulsions, harming us and themselves at that.